Hello and welcome to today's channel and today's message, and I hope that you're all doing well. We're living in tumultuous times, of that there's no doubt, and I'll get straight down to what I'm talking about today. And this channel is about Bible prophecy, it's about the rapture, the timing of the rapture, it's about what's going on in the world today as well. And it's also about other teachings from the Word of God, preparing people for the rapture and preparing people for the end times. And I make no hesitation in saying that this channel is also about truth and standing for truth. There's a lot of deception in the world today. There's a lot of deception going on in society and the narrative with what's going on in the Middle East and elsewhere. And I want to break this teaching today into three parts. There's three elements that I want to discuss today. The first element is, what is the political agenda? What is going on in the media today regarding the pro-Palestinian demonstrations, regarding the Gaza situation, regarding the war there in Gaza, and the situation surrounding Israel as well? And I want to bring our attention to this matter. I don't stand on the fence with it. I will tell you exactly what the truth is, and it's up to you to come to that understanding as well. The second part that I want to talk about is the situation at the moment with the ceasefire in Gaza, the political pressure put on the Israeli government, and what the alternatives are in that situation. As I speak, there hasn't been a consensus media agreement about what's going to happen, although something could happen at any moment in terms of an announcement about whether the IDF are going to go and continue to dispose of the last battalions of Hamas terrorist fighters in Rafah, or whether there's going to be this peace agreement made through Qatar, through Saudi Arabia, and through the efforts of Anthony Blinken and so forth. So we don't know whether there's going to be a ceasefire, but I'm going to pick out that situation and explain to you what's going on and what the possible outcomes are. And then thirdly, I want to just bring this and tie this into the timing of the rapture, the timing of the 7-year covenant which needs to be signed. So without further ado, let us look at what's going on at the moment in the media. Particularly, we see it, don't we? The first part of what I want to talk about is the media agenda, what's being put out there in the mainstream media, how the mainstream media channels such as CNN, of course Al Jazeera, which we know is entirely biased and entirely run by pro-Palestinian Muslims and Arabs, by other media like the BBC News and so forth, Sky News, etc. And what the overall media are saying, what their slant is on what's going on in the Middle East at the moment. Now, obviously, most of you will be aware, I'm sure, of the demonstrations going on in the universities around America, from the West Coast to the East Coast. Most of the main universities are being overrun. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say they're being overrun by pro-Palestinian supporters who have encamped all over the universities, and many of them now have gone into the university buildings. I know the University of Columbia in New York City, also in Los Angeles and in Portland, Oregon. They've overtaken and occupied inside the buildings there. On one of them this morning I saw, I think it was in the Columbia University, there's a flag draped down with the word written Intifada on it. So you've got the pro-Palestinian supporters who, let's be honest about it, if you're not really awake to these things, let's be clear about these people. They're supporting Hamas. Pro-Palestinian is pro-Hamas, you know, in everything but word. They really are against the Jews. They are anti-Semitic in what they're doing. That is the brutal truth of these protesters and what they're doing. And how on earth they've been allowed to get away with what they're doing is beyond me. But we know it's a political agenda. I will tell you the truth. It is a political agenda. It's all been by design, all of it. And if you don't understand that, then now is the time to awake and understand and start asking the relevant questions that you might need to ask. So going back to what I was saying, they put up this sign saying Intifada. That means an uprising. That means a fight against what they term the occupation. It's not an occupation. Israel is a certified nation. It is a state as confirmed by the United Nations back in 1948. It is not an occupation. I hate seeing that word occupation. That is just a pro-Palestinian, pro-Muslim Arab way to get sympathy from the outside world and to make themselves look as if they're the hard done by ones. Okay, let's be clear about this whole issue. This issue, let's be clear about it. It is anti-Semitic. Okay, at the heart of what's going on these university campuses is anti-Semitism. Okay, it is a belief by these people who are allowed to not just protest, but to protest aggressively and violently, with many police departments and military and people in authority allowing them to do it, allowing them to obstruct Jews going into their classes, putting fear in the hearts of Jewish students across America. This is the political agenda. This is what's been allowed. Are the media reporting it fairly? No. The media are not reporting it fairly, right? The media are trying to give credibility to these people. These people are supporting Hamas. These people are supporting the Palestinian agenda. Let's go back to the heart of the issue. Let me explain to you, if you're not aware, if you've got questions, if you're not on solid ground with this, let me explain to you the heart of the problem. This problem is all about the existence of Israel. If you don't understand that, you'll never understand what is this all about. It is about the existence of the Jewish state. It is about the existence of Israel itself. Ever since Israel became a nation in 1948, okay, now I'm not going to go into a big history lesson, but everybody knows, even the Palestinians, who, by the way, are mostly Jordanians and Egyptians, right, in the land, they know that that land belonged to the Jewish people. It has done for nearly 4,000 years, long before there was any Palestinian name given. Let's be clear about that. There's never been a Palestinian state. It's just Arabs that have clubbed together because they're Muslims. They hate the Jews. This is a religious, spiritual conflict. And this is what you never get in CNN. You never get in the BBC News. You do not get it in the mainstream media. This is about the religious authority of the Jews against Muslims. This is what it's about. Christians and Jews being targeted by Muslims. Okay? The Jewish people have wanted to live in peace in their native homeland, the land which God gave to them. Right? God gave it to the Jewish people 4,000 years ago, roughly. The God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. And for that period of time, that was the Jewish heartland. They lived there, they reigned there for many years until the Romans came in AD 70 and destroyed the temple and so forth. But in recent history, ever since Israel became a state again in 1948, you have had the Arabs there in the land and those just outside, the Jordanians, the Egyptians and the Syrians to the north, wanting to displace the Jews. Why? Because it's a religious war. The Jewish people in Israel are surrounded by Arabs. They're surrounded by Muslims. Muslims hate Jews. Muslims hate Christians. It's not that difficult to understand, right? That's why you've got Islamic fundamentalists all over the place, committing crimes, wanting to bring about their caliphate, wanting to bring about Sharia law. This is what it's all about. But the mainstream media, partly because they're frightened of the Islamic extremists and partly because they're told to keep quiet and to twist the narrative and to twist the truth, partly because it's a political agenda from the elites, the globalists are behind all of this. The political elites want to bring division. They want to bring chaos. They want to bring one side against another. They want to polarize opinion. They want to bring about violence and corruption. Why? So that then they can bring about their new world order. They can bring about their new one world religion and one world government. This is what a lot of it is about. But people don't understand what's going on. Let's be clear about this, right? The Palestinians, over 90% of them in Gaza, support Hamas. Do you understand that? Well, so when these pro-Palestinian students, who I can tell you now, the vast majority of them are devoid of truth, they're devoid of wisdom, they're devoid of knowledge, they're devoid of understanding. Most of them don't have a clue what it's all about. They're just kids rioting for the sake of rioting and bringing importance to their self and thinking that they're clever. They're not clever, they're a bunch of fools and idiots. That's what these students are. Ignoramuses, that's what they are. Right? And so you've got a situation, I'll tell you the truth. Right? I'm not frightened to say things which are harsh, because that's what needs to be said. If you're pro-Palestinian, you're pro-Hamas. The Palestinians... Look, there's no innocent Palestinians. Let's make something clear. Right? I'm sick to the back teeth of hearing it on these mainstream medias. Oh, poor Palestinians. Oh, innocent Palestinians. The whole Palestinian ethos is the destruction of the Jewish state. The whole emphasis of the Palestinians is to destroy the Jews from the land. That's why they allowed Hamas to rule them. That's why they allow Hamas to claim all the humanitarian aid which goes into Gaza. But what happens is they say genocide. Oh, genocide. It's not genocide at all. The figures are given by Hamas. The figures don't include terrorists, Hamas terrorists that have been killed in the operations of the IDF. They don't include the number of their own people that they killed by sending rockets aiming towards Israel but misfired and killed their own people. And they've extortionate numbers that they've put out there, completely untrue. They don't tell you that Hamas have infiltrated hospitals and residential areas and used their own people as human shields. Oh no, that doesn't come out. And yet Israel is blamed for genocide. The only genocide committed is by Hamas, a wicked, brutal, evil terrorist organisation. And you don't hear that anymore. When do you hear CNN or BBC talking about Hamas the way they should do? About how brutal and evil and how they've butchered their own people and used them as human shields. You never hear about the vast weapons stored under the hospitals, do you? And the terror tunnels everywhere. Oh no, you don't hear about that in Gaza. So weak and pathetic. The narrative given. It's not truth at all. And you need to wake up to that. If you're of any pro-Palestinian set of opinions, and you've been totally deceived. You're weak-minded. You're gullible. You haven't understood any truth whatsoever. You're anti-Semitic at heart. These students have been brainwashed for years. Brainwashed with false information. With false information about what goes on in Gaza. It always has been the Palestinians and the Hamas supporters who have launched rockets into Israel. Israel has tried to live in peace with these people, but it's impossible when you've got an enemy that wants your destruction. Why is that never conveyed and portrayed and explained in the mainstream media? Why do you never hear anybody come out with the truth that actually the Palestinians want the destruction of Israel? The Palestinians have a hatred towards the Jews, which is an insane hatred, which is a demonic hatred, which is full of evil. Why do you never hear that? Why do you never hear what the truth is? And all of a sudden you've got the mainstream media and they've got sympathy towards the Palestinians and this lame, weak, liberal left agenda to sympathise with the Palestinian state. It's nonsense. It's absolute garbage. I have no sympathy for any Palestinian because they're inbred from the beginning to hate Jews and destroy Jews. Why don't they oust... Come on, nobody asked the question. I'll put something to you now if you're listening to this message. Right? You've got something like 1.5 million Palestinian refugees in Gaza. Okay? And you must have about 15,000 terrorists, Hamas terrorists left. Why don't the Palestinian people turn on their Hamas? Why have they not ousted Hamas? Why have they not looked and said, you're responsible for destroying our homes. You're responsible for the carnage. You're responsible for this war. Why have they not done that? Why have the Palestinian people not uprised against Hamas? I'll tell you why. Because they support them. When they came back after October the 7th, after the atrocities they committed, and invaded the land of Israel and did the most brutal, heinous, sinister, vile crimes against innocent Israeli civilians, when they came back in their trucks with all these hostages, what did you see on the streets of Gaza? What did you see? I'll tell you what you saw. You saw Palestinians cheering and celebrating and applauding what these evil monsters had done. That's the Palestinian heart for you. If you think there's innocent Palestinians out there, you've been brainwashed into a completely false ideology. You're completely deceived. Completely and utterly deceived. So the first part I want to bring about is the narrative in the mainstream media is totally falsified. It's totally demonic. Yes, it's demonic. CNN are demonic. BBC News are demonic. Right? I'll tell you how it is. They're demonic. They're run by Satan. They're run by the political agenda. And this will lead to an uprising. It will lead to more chaos on the streets in America and across Europe and across different parts of the world. And that's what the New World Order want to bring about. They're using these fundamental Islamic demons to bring about chaos so that they can bring about their New World Order. They can bring about martial law. They can bring about death and destruction on the streets. That's what they want to do. Part of their depopulation agenda. So they can arrest people and put them in FEMA camps. This is what's going to happen. This is what it's all about. And I want to share something with you. I'm talking from the UK. I'm a British person. And you know what? It says it all, doesn't it? Last Saturday, I think it was last weekend, the pro-Jewish people, supporters, wanted to have their own march through central London. And they prepared it all. It was agreed. They had a time set to have their pro-Israeli, pro-Jewish march. And a peaceful one, which it would be, because they're peaceable people. And you know what? It was cancelled. Oh yes, it was cancelled. And they were segregated to one side in central London, put behind barriers, whole lot of police ringing around them, walking around them and keeping them at arm's length. And what happened instead? The Palestinians, the pro-Palestinians, were allowed their demonstration. Their demonstration went through central London, and the Jewish one was abandoned. And they were told that if they stepped out of order, if they moved from the barrier, they'd be arrested immediately. The Jewish people, the pro-Jewish marchers. So they were stopped from marching. They were stopped from a peaceful protest, and instead you had this hate-filled, vile, pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli demonstration going on through the streets of London, the capital of the UK. What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. See the bias? See the bias in the Met police? The police in the UK? Biased. There's a two-tier system. It's biased. That's why we have a Muslim London mayor. That man is against the truth. He's against Christians, and he's against whites, and he's against Jews. And yet this country has him as their mayor of London. He's a Muslim. And too many Muslims have infiltrated pro-Palestinian supporters, have infiltrated into high positions in the UK. It's a disgrace. This country, when you think about days gone by, I can remember in the 1970s and 1980s, and what a change in this country. This country has gone to the dogs. This country has been infiltrated. This country has been taken over by radical Islamic extremists, and it's been supported and abetted by mainstream media, the BBC News, Sky News, and by CNN, and by the government plans. The government has turned against the indigenous white people in this country. It's turned against truth. It's turned against righteous ways. And it has allowed this country to be taken over by fanatical, anti-Semitic, Jew-hating, pro-Palestinian Islamic extremists. And that's the problem we've got, and that's the situation that we're facing right now. So that's the first part that I want to bring to your attention. The media, the mainstream media narrative is biased, it's twisted, and you never hear anybody calling out the truth about what these pro-Palestinians really represent and what their real ideology is. The second part is this ceasefire agreement or ceasefire deal that's ongoing, and we hear different reports from different sources about it. Is there going to be a ceasefire? How long will the ceasefire be for? And the more I hear about it, the more I concern myself for Israel, because I believe that the Israeli government has made a tremendous mistake. Firstly, 4 weeks ago, in withdrawing from Rafah. They should never have withdrawn from the Gaza Strip until they'd completely destroyed Hamas and completely got rid of those evil monsters. That's what they should have done, but they withdrew because of the pressure from Blinken and Biden, who are working for the New World Order. They're not friends of Israel. They want to pamper to the Palestinian cause, pamper to the terrorists, pamper to Hamas, pamper to the Iranians. That's what the Biden-Blinken government is doing. That's their agenda. So they put this tremendous political pressure on Netanyahu, who sadly is become weaker in the last few months, in my opinion. That was shown by the very limited strike on Iran. That should have been totally different. And by withdrawing from Gaza originally. You know, the Israeli government, I support Israel 100%. I support the Jewish nation. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the peace of the IDF and for the IDF to be protected by God in all of this. But the Knesset, the Israeli cabinet are showing signs of weakness and tiredness and being pressured by outside forces. And I just hope that they don't agree to a ceasefire. Notice they say ceasefire, not peace, because Hamas don't want peace. They want a ceasefire so that they can save their situation. They can save their evil terrorists on the ground in Gaza. And they can rearm and they can re-evaluate and they can keep twisting the sympathy card. They can keep getting all these false images of some kind of genocide going on in Gaza, which is false information, false propaganda. And they want to do it for that benefit. They want to secure themselves, and it's a victory for them. If Israel agrees to a ceasefire, even if it's for 1 year, we're hearing reports of possibly a 1-year ceasefire, that's a loss for Israel. That's a defeat for Israel if they do that. At the moment, what we're hearing is that Israel is only going to receive about 20 to 40 hostages, whereas something like 2,000 Hamas terrorists will be released from Israeli prisons. I mean, you know, how on earth you can negotiate with Hamas is beyond me anyway. I don't see there should be any negotiation with them. I'm afraid people, I know it's a difficult situation, but it's not the Israeli government. They're not to blame for the hostages. It's Hamas who are to blame for the hostages. It's Hamas who are to blame for all of this. And, you know, the people in Israel, the far left, who oppose Netanyahu, you know, they got short memories, really. They got short memories and they don't understand the situation that they're facing. What do they want to do? Let some of these terrorists go back into Gaza? Well, only to attack Israel again in the future. You can't allow that. So it would be a great mistake, in my opinion, a great weakness to do any deal. Any ceasefire is a weak situation. At the end of the day, nobody knows how many hostages are left alive. I personally don't think there are many. I think most of those hostages are dead. And so I think Israel have got to say, well, you know, it's been 7 months since what happened nearly in October of last year. You know, what chance are there of having many hostages alive? And I think they've got to be much more on the front foot and say, no, we're going to finish the war as we said we would. We're going to destroy Hamas out of Gaza. And I think the Israelis are showing a weakness. And they're showing that they've been bullied politically by the US administration and by what's going on in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. You know, all these other factions and elements, the Egyptians, the Jordanians are getting involved. And of course, putting pressure on Israel. And, you know, they're serving their own agenda. They're all calling for a Palestinian state now. You know, they're siding with the Palestinians. None of them are calling out Hamas for what they did. None of them are saying really that Israel is in this awkward position that they're in. You know, I mean, the agenda is just so twisted. But I hope that Israel will say no to any permanent ceasefire, which Hamas want. Why were you letting Hamas dictate? Why is the Israeli government allowing Hamas to dictate the terms? It's just ridiculous. And of course the world's media is kind of sympathising with the state of the poor old Palestinians there. Oh, there's got to be a ceasefire because of the genocide. It's just so wicked and evil, all of it. And you need to see that. You need to see through the media. You need to see through what's really happening. You need to see through there's a spiritual element in all of this. There's the work of demons going on. Okay? And the demons, what they'll do is they'll falsify the truth. They'll falsify the narrative. They'll paint Israel as the architect of suffering and death. They'll falsify the narrative. They will look to bring judgment upon Israel and to blame the Jews and the Israeli government for what's happening in Gaza and elsewhere. That's what the demons will do. They'll try and persuade people to have sympathy with Hamas and with the Gazans and with the Palestinians. That's what the demons will try to do. And sadly, they've worked out quite well. They've managed to do that because, many people around the world have sympathy now for Hamas and for the Gazan people. And it's just totally twisted the truth. There is no truth in that narrative whatsoever. So it will be interesting to see how this plans out. And of course, I will say this, that if Israel does the right thing and says no ceasefire, we'll go in and try and rescue hostages, but we will defeat Hamas. We will go into Rafah. We will go forward in the Gaza Strip and take control of it all. If Israel does that, which is the right thing to do, then watch out for the next narrative. Watch out for the next wave of false accusations of genocide. Watch out for the world to cry out for ceasefire. Watch for the anti-Semitism to grow stronger and stronger. Watch for the Hamas narrative where they deliberately put Palestinians in situations where they'll die for their own benefit. Watch how they'll show images of children and people suffering through the rubble and through hospitals, and yet they've caused it all. They'll blame the Jews. Israel, the IDF, takes every precaution it can to limit human suffering and human innocent, civilians dying and women and children. They do all they can to stop that. But in a state of war, there are going to be casualties, especially when you're dealing with someone like Hamas, who will use women and children as human shields. But of course, that's not reported. That's not understood, is it? That's not shared. So they will do all they can to paint in Israel as the demon in all this. And yet it's the Hamas Pro Palestinians that are the demons. They are the workers of Satan. They're the workers of the devil. And you need to see that. If you haven't seen that, if you're new to this channel, if you've come on here, you're looking for truth, then you need to be quite clear about what truth is. And I'm giving you that truth right now. The third element I want to look at is the timing of the rapture. And how does this all fit into the rapture? Well, personally, I believe that the rapture won't happen until there's a war with Hezbollah as well. And you might say, well, why? I personally believe that this is the start of a process. I believe that if Israel does go into Rafah, that's one stage closer to the events that need to take place. Because you'll then find that at some point, if Israel goes into Rafah, the Iranians will start speaking out again. They will start encouraging Hezbollah to attack Israel, to attack Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. You'll find more missiles, more bombs coming into Israel. You'll find that the narrative will be twisted again. Everybody will be blaming Israel for attacking in Rafah when they've got to do that to get rid of Hamas. You'll find that Hezbollah will up the ante. You'll find that the Iranians will maybe strike again or use their Houthis or use their militias, their Shiite militias in Syria on the border with Israel, in the Golan Heights area, and also their militias in Iraq will get involved. And also, of course, you'll have an uprising of tensions in the West Bank, in Samaria and Judea. And you're going to find that's what's going to happen. You see, in terms of the timing of the rapture, some people are saying that, peace and security now, and, if there's a ceasefire now, that will lead to the rapture and the peace agreement. No, that's not what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot more war. There's going to be a lot more violence. Unfortunately, for the Daniel 9, chapter 9, 27 covenant with many to come to fruition, to be agreed, I'm afraid the situation's going to get a lot worse first. And I say that because the Palestinians in Jerusalem and the Palestinians as a whole will never allow for the building of a third Jewish temple in Jerusalem, probably on the Temple Mount. So what's going to happen? The violence is going to spread. The violence is going to expand. Even today, this morning, news breaking from Jerusalem. One stabbing of a Jewish policeman in central Jerusalem, and I think in the Old City. There's been a knife attack from a Turkish terrorist. And of course the local people in Jerusalem there, the Palestinians, are all shouting Allah Akbar, their usual thing, Allah Akbar. That's what you're dealing with. And there's been another attack in Samaria, apparently. These Islamic terrorists slamming their car into Jewish policemen in Samaria. Just breaking news in the last couple of hours. So what you're going to find is there's going to be bloodshed throughout the cities of Israel. Throughout the streets of Jerusalem, there's going to be bloodshed. There's going to be attack from Hezbollah. There's going to be violence erupting in the West Bank, in Judea, Samaria, in all these towns there. There's going to be violence. There's going to be protests. It's going to get a lot worse for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. And then when it's at the height of great problems and Israel will realize they've got no other option but to fight in the streets and to survive, that is when there'll be that cry for peace and security, peace and safety. And that is when the Lord will come for his people. But Israel will only have the third temple built when they have defeated the Palestinians. I personally believe that the enemies of Israel, and I could be wrong, but this is what I believe the Bible teaches, that Hamas, Hezbollah, and all the other proxies around Israel will have to be defeated. And also those inside Israel, the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinians inside, the terrorists that exist within Israel itself, the Palestinian, the Hamas supporters, the Iranian proxies, they will all have to be defeated and crushed before the rapture takes place, before the covenant is signed with many, before Israel gets the permission and authority to build the third temple. And that's what it's about. Don't ever forget that one of the key things that the Hamas leaders said was a reason for the October the 7th attack last year was because they'd heard reports that the Jews wanted to enter the Temple Mount more often and to start the sacrifices of the red heifer and plans for the third temple. And this is what it's all about. Keep your eyes on the Temple Mount. Keep your eyes on Jerusalem. This is what it's all about. It's about control of Jerusalem. And the Islamics don't want the Jews anywhere near the Temple Mount or Jerusalem. Satan, who worked through the Palestinians, he worked through Hamas, he worked through the Iranian proxies, he worked through all Islamic extremists. He is trying to destroy the Jews and the Christians, and he's trying to stop the building of the third temple in Jerusalem. And this is what it's all about. It's a religious, spiritual war. And if you're not aware of that, then that's something which I hope today's teaching will give you that understanding. This is far greater than just some spotty-faced teenagers or youngsters in America in these student protests. This goes far, far deeper than this. These young ignorant fools. It goes far, far deeper than this. There is a spiritual war raging. It is for Satan to try and destroy the Jewish people, as he has done for many centuries, and he will fail again, because the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, he never slumbers, he never sleeps, and he will protect Israel, he'll protect the Jewish people, and the Jews will have the victory in these confrontations and violent exchanges. And that's what you need to understand. There's a far deeper picture, this. This goes far deeper than what the demonstrations we're seeing. But the shame is on the mainstream media for their support of the pro-Palestinian movement. Unbelievable. Shame on them. Shame on the Met Police. Shame on you for allowing the Palestinians to walk through the capital of once was a Christian country. And they're demonstrating their hatred and anti-Semitism. Shame on the Met. Shame on our government. Shame on the BBC News for allowing this to happen. It's all part, by design, of the globalist New World Order agenda. And we know that Satan is behind it, and he's trying to destroy Jews and Christians alike. And in terms of the rapture, we need to keep watching how it's going to develop. But it's not yet. But this could be the start of what's coming. So watch out. Keep watching, says the Lord Jesus Christ. And I pray that this message today, if you're liberal-minded, or you're half-hearted, or you're lukewarm, or you've been seduced into believing the pro-Palestinian narrative, then this won't be for your consumption. You won't particularly like what I've taught today, but then you're in deception. You don't love truth. This channel is about truth, and I stand with Israel. We stand with the Jewish people, and we stand with the God of Israel. There we are. Until the next time, God bless.